Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unlocked, where we talk about unlocking the potential of you, the people you work with, and the people you do life with. At the time of this recording, I'm offering all of you, yes, my lovely listeners, a free 15-minute communication coaching call. You come with some kind of communication problem, and I give you a solution. My calendar link is in the show notes, so check that out. If you have been involved in the marketing space in any way, shape, or form over the past 2 decades, you know the name Rand Fishkin. He was the face of Moz for a long time, and 17 years, and that journey is going to be talked about on the show. And he's no longer there, for those of you who don't know. He's been gone since the late 2000 teens, and he has started 2 new ventures, SparkToro and Snackbar, and he has led those companies now into being the successful company startups that they are. He led Moz to be where it was, left, talks about that pain, that vulnerability, that thing that happened at the end of his journey at Moz, and how he started this new transition, the lessons he learned, and the things that he wanted to take with him that made him successful. For all of you out there thinking about how to start something, things that don't go so great for you, but how do you pick yourself up and keep moving? The things that you learn from those things that enable you to help others. And what are you doing with that? Are you being responsible with that knowledge that you now have and sharing it with others? Rand is, and he's doing it on this show. So here we go. Rand, it is so good talking to you, man. I'm thankful that you're here.
Yeah, good to be here, Scott. Thanks for having me.
There is we have a long relationship, a long history together, Rand. You don't know that, but we do. We do.
Fair enough.
Your years at Moz shaped a lot of what I did in my own agency business, running a design firm and helping my clients market to the world. And then leveraging your platform at Moz to do that was something that was really impactful. I learned a lot from you. Your educational tidbits, you put out Blackboard Fridays, like blew my mind. Like, just the simplicity, the tactile nature of that was just brilliant. So thank you, man, for being who you are.
Oh, that's very, very kind. I don't take praise well, but I'll try and suffer through.
Okay. Accept it, man. It's a gift, man. It's a gift. So there you go. Tell me about, so you're no longer at Moz, and tell us about why. Tell us that story. Just give us a snippet background, and then go into your days now at SparkToro and Snackbar, and that's what you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah. So, for folks who don't know, I started a company called Moz, which is in the SEO software space. It was originally a blog and a consulting business, then transitioned to a software company, raised lots of venture capital, grew very fast and very large, was sort of a market leader in that specific sector of SEO software for a good number of years. And then the company sort of struggled. It plateaued in growth a little bit, which is not good when you have a venture capital backing. And I stayed there until 2018 and left and started SparkToro the next day. So went through that sort of VC ringer at a time in tech when that was obviously very popular and very lauded. And my experiences were, like most people in venture-backed world, pretty frustrating and fraught. And even though many people would consider Moz sort of a success, grew to $50 million in revenue and 200 employees and tens of thousands of happy customers. From a venture perspective, it did not meet its investors' minimum return requirements, and that disappointed me a lot. I like to make promises that I can keep, and with SparkToro, that is part of the goal. Snackbar as well. So both those companies use, or in Snackbar's case, will use a funding model that is kind of an alternative. It's something we invented ourselves, sort of put together with our attorney. And when I say we, my co-founder, Casey, and I, Casey's our CTO. And we structured SparkToro basically such that we have 35 angel investors, a lot of folks like yourself, Scott, people who ran agencies or knew me from the marketing world, tech world. And they put in between $25,000 and $100,000 each. And we raised $1.3 million in total in 2018, with the goal of basically using that to get to profitability, paying our investors back, and then being able to make dividend payments every few years to give them a return on their investment. And actually last year we did repay our investors their full 1.3 million, and now going forward we can hopefully make those dividend payments. So that's kind of my story from a broad perspective. We get into what the companies do if that's of interest to your audience.
Well, I will want to hit on that. I think that that's really important. I think that people need to know about your platform. They need to know about what you do, because I think that there is an important factor of what it builds into the network of marketing and how we pitch ourselves, how we understand our audiences. What I do want to hit on is your days at Moz and how you led that company. People be like, well, why is he gone? Like, what happened there? Why is he gone? And then I want you to talk about the transition and the impact of what you heard the day after you left. Like, you wrote about it in one of your blogs, as far as some of the things that you were hearing from the people. I want you to talk to that just a little bit as well.
Yeah. So let's see. The first question: what caused me to leave the company? So in 2014, I had stepped down from the CEO role during a bout with depression, and I handed the reins over to my longtime chief operating officer, who became the new CEO. And we'd always run the business very much as a partnership, right? The two of us together making a lot of decisions. If she had strong opinions on something, I almost never would overrule those opinions. And so I think I perhaps foolishly assumed that would still be the case going forward. And even though we had lots of discussions about it, I think once she became the CEO and growth was more challenging, right? The growth rate was falling at that time, and the company was sort of plateauing. Lots of tension emerged between us and between myself and the board of directors. We had a painful round of layoffs that we did in 2016. And I think, in my opinion, those could have probably been avoided if the company had been had done some things differently. And so lots of tension and anger and hurt feelings and feelings of not being listened to. And I think from the board's perspective and from the CEO's perspective, they viewed me as sort of someone who was problematic, right? Like quite influential, seen as sort of an industry leader in the specific field of SEO, but also somewhat challenging to internal authority. And I can completely understand that. A lot of people that I talked to said, "Hey, if you're not the CEO, you step down, you leave. It's fine to stay on the board of directors, but you should leave the company, because it creates problems and tension inside the business." The board didn't want that, primarily because of my kind of marketing influence on the rest of the industry. But I think that probably would have been the wiser move. And so as a result, things kind of came to a head in 2017. And during that year, we negotiated a sort of a departure for me. And I think you could, reasonable people can disagree about whether that is Rand chose to leave, Rand was asked to leave, somewhere in between those two things.
How did you lead Moz? What was your philosophy when you were there? And what happened to cause you to have this like contention near the end, this misalignment, this disagreement with the new leadership?
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, I want to say I was very young. Um, becoming a CEO in your 20s and getting millions of dollars and, sort of leading a company at those ages, I think is uh, challenging. And I can see why some investors, many more mature investors, prefer more mature companies and CEOs. I think that as with age comes wisdom and softening, and a little bit, rubs down those sharp edges, which I certainly had. I think a big part of my philosophy when I was CEO at Moz was that we were there to help people do better marketing, but also to kind of challenge Google specifically, right? That Google was keeping their ranking systems and all their algorithmic elements secret, and that our job was to uncover those and reveal them to people and make that kind of marketing more transparent, more accessible to people. And I took transparency to an extreme in a lot of ways, writing about lots of things that other people would not generally write about their businesses. And that earned us a lot of attention and followers, and I think some fans as well, and also some detractors and people who did not resonate with the things that we did. And certainly it created some tension between us and Google, perhaps less necessarily than it needed to be. My tension with the new leadership was often around issues of product direction, resource focus and management, and process. So I'm a very process light person. I think a spreadsheet can do 99% of the processes that you need, and setting up lots of check-ins and tools and systems and meetings and layers is antithetical to the way I work well, and to, I think, the way a startup can grow fast. Moz was always behind its marketing in terms of its product features, and that was something I desperately wanted to catch up on. I don't think it ever really got there. There were lots of investments that I believed we shouldn't make, things like enterprise sales, which I didn't and still don't. Not that I don't believe in them, obviously it can work, but I don't think I or the companies that I've built are the right ones to pursue that channel. And that became a big focus for many years after I stepped down as CEO, until they finally shut it down and decided it wasn't worth doing. But I think I'm a little bit more instinctual, and my successor was more wait for the data to come in, study things for a long time, build consensus among leadership and management and the team, make decisions more slowly, which I think is actually probably works well in a mature, larger business, but not in a startup that's attempting to scale.
Can I read something from your blog?
Absolutely.
In this post, you say, my last day was one of the worst in my career, topped only by the layoffs my company had done 18 months prior. The next day, February 28th, was one of the best. Not because I had some personal epiphany or found joy in the freedom of starting again, but because of what happened after I published this blog post. I woke up to literally thousands of messages in the comments on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and my new inbox. Thousands. It took me almost 2 weeks to reply to all of them. Almost all were overwhelmingly positive. Why? Why would so many people send you thousands of messages? And why would you spend so much time going through each one of those?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. When I was a kid in the industry, right, just coming up in my early 20s, I would often write to people that I really admired, that I found online, in the marketing field, SEO field, or before that, even the web design field. I almost never got a response. Like, nobody wrote back, and I thought that was terrible. Here I was, like a kid, expressing like, oh my God, Scott, I love your work. I think this is so amazing. often without an
I would
ask,
totally
right?
respond to you, Rand. By the way, if you wrote me that, I'll totally respond. So go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say that, of the dozens and dozens of people that I emailed, very, very few responded ever. And I sort of made a promise to myself that I would not be that person. If I ever achieved a profile where people wanted to write to me and express their, anything, right? Ask questions, ask if I would do something. Even if the answer is no, I'm sorry, I don't have the bandwidth to help your thing. I'm going to reply with that, right? I'll at least say, you deserve a reply. And that is why I went through all of those thousands of messages, at least the ones in email, which was a good couple thousand just by itself. But yeah, it was a very emotional process to sort of see and feel all these lives that had been, at least professionally, positively influenced by our work.
Why'd you get so many? Well, I mean, why would people take that little moment of time to write you a message? I know you don't take compliments well, Rand, as you said earlier on, but I coaching leaders and doing what I do and developing culture inside of companies. There's a brand associated with a leader. There's a brand associated with a team. There's a brand associated with a company, and it's not what you look like. It's how you make me feel.
Yeah.
And people felt something, so they wanted to respond to that moment in your life because it was a moment in theirs, and they wanted to express something. I guess I'm wondering, what did you do earlier on? What was your philosophy on the people that you served, the people that you worked with and led, that would drive people to write messages like that?
Yeah. Gosh. Okay. I'll say a couple of things on that topic. One is, unusually, I think that, and perhaps problematically, I often prioritize the community of marketers and professionals that followed the company and sort of learned from Moz and subscribed to our blog and came to our events and our webinars and watched Whiteboard Friday, the video series. I often prioritize them over kind of everything else in my professional world, and that includes employees and teams. So I think that there are a group of people who would say, "Gosh, Rand was wonderful to work for," but I think that group is probably small, and the larger majority at Moz would sort of be like, "Well, he wasn't around all that much, right? Like he did a lot of travel and conferences and events. He did a lot of filming his whiteboards and writing for the blog, and he'd only come in for meetings. He didn't really want to have meetings." I think I was an ideal remote employee before remote became popular, thanks to COVID. I do have, I'll pull it up for you. So I do have this. This was made by one of the people I worked with at Moz, a woman who I think had worked at a hair salon before coming to the company, and then she'd been an admin, and then took product management and UX courses. She now runs the checkout experience at Nike, which is just incredible. And there are a few people who really who I really resonated with. But in the broader community, the people outside Moz's customers and fans and sort of followers and that kind of stuff, that's where almost all those messages came from. It wasn't employees. And those people, I think, felt that our work had a positive influence on their professional lives, which in many cases, according to their emails, had a very positive impact on their personal lives, right? People who, whatever, dropped out of high school or dropped out of college or were struggling in their careers. They found something on Moz. It resonated with them. They were able to apply the learnings to their processes. They grew their agency. They grew their consulting business. They got a promotion at work. They got hired for a job they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. They binge watched a bunch of my videos and then went in for an interview and got the job. And they were, I think that created this resonant connection. And I hope too that many of those people had seen that over the years, I'm someone who kind of wears my heart on my sleeve and would react and respond to their messages, right? So I think many of them knew that if they emailed me, I would see it, I would appreciate it, I would respond to it.
There's something about your posts, well, as I was reading them, and kind of your story, that to me speaks a lot to vulnerability. It speaks a lot to transparency. And that philosophy that you had early on starting Moz of like, hey, we're going to be really transparent about all this. Google may not be, and we're going to reveal. We're going to talk about it. We're not going to hide behind this. And that's what got you so much respect, I would think, based on what you said. But I hear even in your personal world, that philosophy carrying over to what you are and who you are now, of transparency, openness. And as I was reading these blog posts, I'm thinking about that. And I'm thinking about, I hear out of these blog posts, I hear frustration, I hear pain, I hear anger, I hear a little bit of remorse, I hear like appreciation, I hear a legacy, this chapter of my life. I mean, 17 years you were there. And that's a huge chunk of your adult life, you know, and you built your baby up to be this thing that you had expectations and dreams for. And it didn't go quite as you'd hoped. And it shaped you to be the person you are today. And now as you transition now into starting 2 new companies, what are those things that you are going to carry on with you that you've learned that you're going to carry on to SparkToro and to Snackbar that you believe are what helped you be so successful, but also some things. So let's start with that first. What are some things that you think that you're going to take on that have helped you be successful?
Let's see. I think both the transparency and vulnerability are definitely pieces that I continue to believe in. I would say my current belief on transparency is that I temper it a little bit with empathy and thoughtfulness, both for the people around me. So, for example, at Moz, I often revealed things that I think people that I worked with maybe wish that I had not. And I want to be more respectful of that going forward. For example, at SparkToro, we don't publish our revenue numbers, which I always did at Moz, because my co-founder Casey is quite uncomfortable with it. SparkToro is doing nicely; it's in a good place, but you know, I'd love to. I just default to putting that out there, but Casey kind of has a different attitude around it, and I want to be respectful of that. Right? He's my co-founder; he helped build this thing, so tempering that transparency, maybe a little bit of that maturity that we grow to have as we get older. Also, I think one of the big things that I learned is that by building an audience of people who care about the problem that you're solving, you can have, I would say it removes the need for the tougher, sort of outreach focused, aggressive sales type of building that many software as a service businesses need to use, right? Either in terms of large advertising spend or huge marketing budgets or aggressive sales people, or, you know, pitch focused sales techniques. Those are things that don't resonate with me. I don't like them. They don't hit me in the right spot. And I feel uncomfortable doing them or recruiting people who would do them. And so my strong preference is to have people come to us, right? Essentially say, oh, I associate SparkToro with solving the hard problem of audience research, right? In this way. When I need that, I'm going to go to them because I know them, I like them, I trust them, I've heard of them, they're sort of top of mind for me. That's the way I like to build a marketing and sales funnel. So that's definitely sticking around too.
And lessons learned from your previous experience that you want to not take with you, or that others that are starting a journey can learn from your 17 years at Moz.
Yeah, I think 2 things are true. One is I can be a decent CEO, but probably not a great employee. So I have included clauses in SparkToro's documentation and Snackbar's as well that I can't be removed without my own decision, right? And I probably will remain at companies while I'm the CEO of them, and not so much otherwise. I think the other thing is, and that that sounds bad even to me, right? Like, oh, you must have a control problem. I think maybe I do. Yeah, maybe. But I'm kind of going to lean into it.
But
right?
let me. Well, why should people consider that though? Is what I want to get to. What I mean, sure, it could sound bad, it could sound good, it could sound like you have a control problem or not. But why should other people consider putting that into their agreements?
Well, I think it's not about one specific thing going in. I think the lesson here is if you can achieve self-knowledge, right? Like, I know myself really well. I know that these are things that frustrate me. I know that these are things that bring me energy, that bring me happiness and joy, that bring me down and make me upset. One of the things that really bothers me a lot is responsibility without control. So even after I stepped down as Maz's CEO, I was responsible for the success of the business, but I no longer had the control to make change happen in the way I believed would get the business to where I wanted to go. That was an infuriating and just heartbreaking process. And I don't ever want to go through something like that again. So my goal moving forward with my companies is let's maintain that control so that I can feel responsible. If I feel bad about how things are going, I can make changes in direction that I think can help. And my decisions might not always be correct. That's okay too. Sorry, what was your other question related to that, Scott?
More the things that you lessons learned that others can learn from your experience those past 17 years that you want to change as you move into your new ventures.
Yeah, it's funny you say new, but these are, it's 6 years old now. It's been around a while.
I'd say new, but yes.
Yeah. One of the other big ones for sure is is how we funded the business and how we plan to return money to investors. So I think that I have this sort of core belief of that I should make reasonable promises. If I tell you I'm going to join your podcast, I'm going to join your podcast. If I tell you I'm going to be at this conference, you can count on me being there. If I tell you that I'm going to return the $25,000 that you invested in my company to you, and then I'm going to pay you dividends after that, well, gosh darn it, I better do it. That's just how it is. I think I lived with this just absolute boulder hanging over me for a decade of I promised my investors, a 5 to 10x return. And I don't know how I'm going to get them even 3x given our growth rate. I'm a failure. This company is a failure. Everything we do is not enough. It never felt like enough. And, that's the venture model, right? They don't mind. They put money into 1,000 companies. 970 of them are going to fail. 25 of them are going to be mediocre Moz-style successes, and 5 of them are going to make the whole portfolio, right? They're going to be the Googles and Apples and Amazons and Facebooks and whatever. And that's fine with them. But if you're the entrepreneur who's made that promise, it doesn't feel good for me. It doesn't work. No.
And that is because of the person of integrity that I believe you probably are. I mean, we aren't best friends. After the show, we will be. But, it's that level of integrity that I can hear from your story and your writing that I've kind of seen and followed you through the years. And I kind of, what I hear now from you that I think is there, as you go into, doing what you're doing day to day, leading new companies, and building new platforms. what's your emphasis on the people aspect of how you want to run your companies?
Yeah, that's another change for me. I plan on keeping both SparkToro and Snackbar very small. So SparkToro is 3 people, Snackbar is 5. The Snackbar might grow to 7 or 8, even 10. But I don't think I'll ever have a company with 50 or 100 people again. I like building close, sort of small personal relationships with everyone. I know this is not common, and lots of folks recommend against it, but I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. I like building friendships with everyone that I work with. And I believe that I and they have the emotional maturity to work it out if, should whatever, the company not work out, or, I have to lay them off or something like that. Like the friendship will persist. I often tell people, like, when I build a friendship, I don't want to lose friends anymore. I'm done with that. It's not interesting to me. And so you're locked in for life. And I hope my friends are ready for that. I try and make sure that they
Did
know.
you tell them that before they got to be friends with you? Like,
Oh yeah,
I get a little clingy with the friendship thing, so make sure you're good for this, because I am.
Well, so I probably don't get very clingy because I'm lucky to have a very wide network of friendships, personal and professional, and I mix the two abundantly, which I think is also unusual. But I don't really want to. Let's see. I think that if you, depending on how you build your company, what you are aiming for, you can decide, is this business's goal to maximize the amount of revenue and growth that it can achieve? Or does this business have another goal? And I would argue one of the big goals of both my companies, outside of revenue and growth, which are obviously important, right? They're important to build and maintain. But the other one is, this is here so that we can lead the lives that we want to lead. SparkToro exists so that Casey and Amanda and I can live the lives that we want to live, and our investors can too. And so can our customers, right? The idea is that, SparkToro is going to help our customers save a bunch of time and do a bunch of research they couldn't have done otherwise that will help them do better marketing. It's also so that we as a team can do what we call chill work, right? On average, working 30 hours or less a week, having lots of vacation time when we need it, having lots of flexibility in terms of, hey, if Casey needs to take 2 days off because his girls are sick and, he's primary caretaker for them at home. So, hey, he's not going to be around much, for the next 40 hours. It's fine, right? The software kind of runs itself. It's designed and built that way. It's very scalable. It's very stable. It takes longer to build, but it doesn't matter because that's the focus. If Amanda needs, she's on, usually I think it's her mother-in-law helps with childcare. This week she can't. So whatever. Long story short, Amanda was like, hey, I'm not going to have very many hours this week. No problem. We're cool, right? We're fine. We can be flexible. We'll launch that thing we were going to launch this week. We'll launch that next week. It doesn't matter. Not a big deal. There's no one that we're trying to, impress to raise our next round. We don't have to hit certain metrics. If we have a down quarter or two, it doesn't matter much. We had a really rough sort of last year before March for a variety of reasons, but one of the big ones is we used to rely on Twitter data. When Elon bought Twitter, things kind of got terrible over there. So we had to switch data platforms and blah, 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 blah. But we managed through it. Even in the worst months of that, we were like, well, we're still profitable, still putting thousands of dollars in the bank, right? So it's kind of the dream. In Snackbar, similar story. So the focus is just different. It is different from maximizing growth at all costs. And for our investors, I think that's where people have questions. They go, how can you practice chill work? How can you not worry about having a down quarter or two? How can you, think about these ways? And my answer is, we also do this for our investors. Our investors put money into us with the promise that we would get them their money back and then we would provide dividends, which does not mean growth at all costs. It means profitability and survivability long term above everything else. And so what we've done is align the promise that we made to them and the way that we can raise money. When you make a promise to a venture investor or to the public markets, it's just, you know that almost everyone is going to fail. That they're just not going to get there. Public markets is sort of different story, but venture, almost everyone is going to fail to live up to the promise when they sign those terms, and that is deeply weird to me. This doesn't match.
I love that you brought up chill work. That was something that that was really cool to me to hear about your philosophy of hustle culture and to come up with this idea of chill work. Just hearing you talk to me the way you're talking to me and being in the startup space, don't mix, right? That's usually what you hear. It's like startups, hustle, startup, hustle, startup. And it's like, you're like, yeah, we're just doing our thing. And then everybody's like, sure, Rand, sure. Not everybody has that luxury, but what would you say to that?
It's true. Absolutely. Not everybody has that luxury. I would say a few things. One is, when you think about the people who raise venture capital, I think, the dream is that this is someone who's sort of had great ideas, worked hard. Maybe they have done remarkable things in their life, and that's not untrue. But almost everyone who receives venture capital comes from a wealthy family already. And that is getting more pernicious, right? So the wealthier your family is, and the more, the longer venture capital goes on, the more true that becomes. I think in the early 2000s, those numbers were a little more distributed. Over the last 10, 15 years, it's become, top 10% of wealth in the United States. Those families are producing almost all the entrepreneurs that get funded. That's not awesome, right? That kind of sucks. I think you have to believe something that's fundamentally untrue for that to feel fair. And what you have to believe that talent is not equally distributed, that somehow talent is correlated, and talent potential is correlated with wealth and with sort of all sorts of groups, whatever racial and ethnic or religious or sexuality wise or able-bodiedness or whatever, that are also correlated with wealth. And those are things I don't believe, right? My belief is talent is equally distributed. It's just opportunity that's not. The opportunity is not equally distributed. So I really bias to this, to a world in which different kinds of people can get funding. And I think if we change the funding models, if we change the investment expectations, if we change what success means for a new company, for a startup in technology or otherwise, we change who gets to be successful. That sounds awesome to me, right? That's a mission I'm sort of behind. And that, in my dream scenario, Scott, right, 15, 20, 25 years from now, people point to SparkToro and they point to Snackbar Studio and they point to a few other companies that I'm involved with and have helped out with this funding model. They point to those and say, that's what I want to do. That's the right path for me. And investors also say, that's what I want to see in the world. And I don't have the risk tolerance of being able to put, $1 million into 100 companies to get $1 billion outcome. I need higher veracity rates of return from a consistent set, right? I need a failure rate that's more like 20 or 30%, not 90 or 95%.
Oh man, I love that. I love your heart. That's what I'm getting from all this, right? Is that idea of your heart being in something, your heart driving the way that you lead. And sometimes, when we're younger, to a fault at times, and then using that heart to transition into what you're now doing and taking the principles that drove that success of Feels, right? Wearing that heart on your sleeve in a good way and driving the future of your companies now.
Well, there's a lot of people who, they have success in their career. This is particularly pernicious in startup and tech worlds. They have success in their career, and they intentionally or unintentionally, they pull the ladder up behind themselves, right? They work at companies that build monopolies so that nobody else in the space can possibly compete. That sucks. They then invest in primarily, the stock market, the S&P 500, which has lots of monopolies that make it harder for people to compete, right? Those companies are trying to take market share, and you can see the big winners win more and more and more of the pie of at least the American economy. And the same thing's true in startup land, right? If you come out of your startup, you have a bunch of money, you put it back into the venture ecosystem, you put it back into sort of deals on angel lists that are trying to raise venture, you are perpetuating this, 1 in 100 winners, 99 losers model. I don't think that's mostly a talent game. I think that's mostly a luck game. And I think it sucks. I don't love that model. And so what I want to do is not pull the ladder up. I want to build an escalator, right? Step by step. I want to make it easier for people who maybe didn't come from a rich background, maybe didn't have all the, opportunities. I didn't come from a rich background, but my dad was an engineer at Boeing. He made a decent wage. My mom helped out small marketing businesses in the Seattle area. We always had enough to eat. We always had, I think my parents had 2 cars, pretty much all my life, and a house that we lived in. Like, we were doing fine. We were very comfortable. And a lot of folks, I think, have incredible talent, have incredible ideas, have remarkable work ethic probably 10 times my own. And they deserve opportunity too. And I think models like this, right? Like, what I hope we can do is weed whack our way through this path in the forest, and then other people can follow in the future.
Tell me about SparkToro and Snackbar. Give us kind of the overview of the service you provide there and how they're helping to enable you to live the life you deserve to lead and live, and also the other people.
Yeah. Well, so all right. Well, I'll start with SparkToro. SparkToro is an audience research software tool. It's it's a subscription tool. It's got a forever free version. So if you're like, I want to check it out, there's no free trial. You don't have to put in a credit card. You can just try it for free. And the way it works is you describe an audience to us in one of a couple ways. You say, my audience visits a particular website. It could be your website, or maybe you have a client or a friend with a website. You could say someone who searches for a particular keyword on Google, and we'll build an audience around people who search for that keyword, or people who have a particular word or phrase in their bio, or their job title, or their job description, or interests, or that kind of thing. So you could say, my audience uses this word in their bio, whatever, drones enthusiast, or Dungeons and Dragons, or chemical engineer, or interior designer. And then SparkToro will go out and find, thousands of profiles in our index. We use LinkedIn for the demographic data, and a clickstream panel for sort of behavioral data, and some Google data as well. And so we'd go out and say, okay, of all these interior designers, they tend to visit these websites and search for these keywords and listen to these podcasts and watch these YouTube channels and follow these subreddits and search for these keywords, all that type of data, so that you could then say, okay, I know a lot about interior designers now. I think I want my marketing mix and strategy to look like this. And I'm going to specifically have a focus on like these 10 YouTube channels. How do I get in front of them? And these 2 subreddits, I'm going to participate there heavily. And these social accounts, I'm going to try and get them to amplify my work. Whatever your specific tactics are. That product has been around for 4 years now, just about almost exactly 4 years, and is, has maybe 1,400 paying subscribers, has over 100,000 people use the free version, which is awesome. We love people using the free version, getting value from that. And a nice community around it too. We run a monthly webinar that's quite popular called SparkToro Office Hours, and an annual event called Spark Together that's happening for the first time in person now in Seattle in October. So that's that business.
Well, can I hang on that for a second? I was going to introduce Spark Together because it goes with the theme of what we're talking about.
It does. I was thinking about that too.
It does, man. And I don't know if you did this intentionally or if it's just because it comes from your brain, but Spark Together is built on the idea of transparency. Tell us about that conference and why it's so different.
Yeah. It's definitely a weird format, right? So, most conferences you kind of invite speakers and thought leaders and people who are practiced in the industry to come and sort of share best practices and new tactics and their knowledge and explain what's going on with a particular part of the marketing world. Here's how to get better results from your Google ads, or here's how to do Instagram better, or whatever it is. And Spark Together is not that at all. Instead, what we ask people to do is bring very transparent, vulnerable, emotional stories. So, maybe you have some great tactics for Instagram marketing, but also, maybe I know that your business went through a huge transition and you had to shut a part of it down and rebrand yourself and, go into cockroach mode for 2 years and things were just awful. And then how did you dig yourself out of that? And what did the actual numbers look like when you went through that? That's something that most folks are very unwilling to share because it can be quite deeply personal, and also it doesn't always make them look great, right? When you reveal those tough things. And Spark Together is all about showing the actual numbers and charts and revenue or lost traffic or lost businesses, telling that full story. And as a result, we do no recordings, no sharing, no tweeting, no putting it on threads, no posting to LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff, so that the speaker can feel comfortable talking to this. It's a relatively small room, maybe 200 people, 250, and kind of getting this powerful thing off their chest. I think those kinds of stories, when they are told honestly and vulnerably, those are the most powerful, most resonant, most lesson learning experiences that I've had in my professional career. And I think there are a lot of people who want that when they go to an event, and not, here's 10 tactics for better Instagram ads. So that's what we're building.
I love it so much, man. I love it. And just like reading about that, I was like, that is real. Like, that's got to be life-changing in the sense that the discussions that happen, the vulnerability of them and the freedom that they probably feel, the weight after talking about it on a stage, and then the trust that is built between the two. The person on stage is letting down their wall, saying, this is me. This is raw. This is where I sucked at what I did, and it broke things. And this is how I've come out of it. And that story that we can all relate to, but we don't always talk about because maybe we're ashamed of it or it's embarrassing or whatever. And then I let down my wall. Now you let down your wall, I let down my wall. Vulnerability breeds trust. And all of a sudden we have a connection. And I can't imagine the connections that are going to come out of that conference.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it too, right? We asked, this is, speakers very often, myself included, I'm super guilty of this. We're asked to come and show up for an event and be there for the 1 hour that we're on stage, and then, take off like us. That's fine, right? Show up, leave, great. I think it creates this. I think a lot of speakers also like it because it creates this perception of importance, right? Like, oh, I'm so important. I don't have time to be at the event. I'll only be there for the few minutes around my session or whatever, and then I'm out. And we ask our speakers to be there the whole day, right? At Spark Together, join one of the tables, be around for folks. Once you've shared your story, help chat about it. We think that's a powerful experience. And I think you're right. I think folks will open up in surprising ways. I think it'll be a very different kind of professional experience for the attendees.
It's amazing. All right. Tell us about Snackbar.
Yeah, Snackbar is interesting. So here I'm gonna tell you a thing that I haven't talked about. I mean, I don't talk about a Snackbar a ton for a variety of reasons, which we can get into. The biggest one being all the data says do not start marketing your video game until 6 months before it comes out, because people's attention spans are short, especially in games, and you don't want to create a bunch of excitement and then not deliver on it for 2 years or 2.5 years, which Snackbar is probably realistically at least 2 years away from launching. But that being said, so the core of a video game has to be intensely, immensely fun. It has to be just deeply enjoyable to do sort of the things that you do in the game over and over again. And there's lots of science and art to that. And certainly we're trying to lean into those things. But also, I think one of the keys to building a successful video game is uniqueness. It has to stand out from a crowded space. There are a lot of games out there. There are a lot of choices. And so you have to create a product that is resonant with a particular audience. And I think my suspicion is our audience is going to be older millennials and Gen Xers, and maybe even into the boomer category, right? That sort of 35 to 65 age group who remember a lot of classic, what I'd call chill action style games from the 90s and early 2000s, like old Legend of Zelda stuff. And our setting and our core concept are quite unique. So you, in the snack bar at the end of the world, you are a chef in a magical version of 1960s Italy. And so it's, the music and the art and the visuals and the town that you're in, the surrounding wilds. If you've been to small hilltop towns in central or southern Italy, this will feel very familiar to you. It's being done by an Italian artist, and the team, we all gather in Italy to work on the game together and try and keep the recipes that you forage for, the ingredients, the monsters and creatures that you see, the foliage, the buildings, the sewer grates, the streets, the cobblestones, like every little detail to us needs to be representative of that 1960s Italy experience. And in the game, there's sort of a secretly and quietly, we will be teaching you to speak Italian, but you won't know it. And so my hope is after playing Snack Bar at the End of the World, you'll be able to go to Italy and you'll be surprised when you can order in perfect Italian at your favorite restaurant and have a conversation with the waiter about the food. And that's sort of sneaking it in there. This also saves us a bunch of money translating the voiceover, because while the text will appear in your native language, whatever you speak, all of the spoken lines are going to be in Italian.
Look at that. I mean, everybody's reading subtitles now anyway, with a lot of the Asian culture, things impacting the world now.
Especially in video games, right? Chinese and Japanese video games are huge. South Korean as well.
Yes. Yeah. Huge. So grateful for you. So grateful for your, first of all, for answering my email. So thank you for doing that. But for being on the show, for sharing your heart, sharing your pain also. And some of these things can be hard to relive over and over again. And, but thank you for putting it out there to the world. I don't think enough people do. And, I appreciate that. I hope people see that for what it is. And you've said multiple times on your blog, this is just your side of it. Okay. So other people are not able to express their side on this thing. I appreciate that too. That acknowledgement of like, hey, y'all, this is Rand's viewpoint. This is my own personal whatever. I know you're not hearing the other side. There's always two sides, right? But what I do appreciate is you putting it out there, being so thoughtful and intentional about the words you use. Even in this interview, I can tell there's gears turning up there, man. You're like, okay, I don't want to, I want to make sure.
Yeah, you can tell I've been on the internet for a long time and have had lots of people critique the things that I've said.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I just want to thank you. If people want to talk to you, they want to hang out with you, they want to email you, they want whatever to talk about your model of fundraising, whatever they want to do, how do they contact you?
Yeah, so thank you for mentioning that, because I did want to say that SparkToro's funding model is open sourced. So we paid our attorneys a little extra money to make documents that you can download and use. So if you know entrepreneurs or you're someone who would like to use that funding model, you can search for SparkToro funding in Google, find the blog post. All the docs are linked to
that's
and
so
open
cool.
sourced.
That is so cool.
And a few companies have used them successfully. Most recently, a company here in Seattle called Seattle Ultrasonics that's developing some new kitchen technology. If you want to get in touch with me, I am quite active on both Threads, where I'm Rand DeRuiter, my wife's last name, and LinkedIn, where I'm Rand Fishkin. You can follow me in either of those places. You're also welcome to email me direct, just rand@sparktoro.com.
All right, man. Well, have an awesome day. Thank you again for being here, and keep spreading the word and doing the good things you're doing. I appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure, Scott. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Transparency, openness, vulnerability, enabling others in a good way to be who they were designed to be and to do the things that they should be doing. How much are we a part of that? How much are we lowering our walls to enable others to lower their walls, therefore building trust? Okay. We don't get anywhere without trust. And there's a big lack of trust happening right now inside of our organizations. That's causing a lot of problems, a lot of silos, a lot of turf wars, a lot of micromanagement, a lot of, we'll call it responsibility without authority. A lot of those things are happening because we lack trust. If we can build on that through being more vulnerable, being open, talking more, that's what it's all about. And I'm grateful for the messages Rand shared today, moving through his journey of being at Moz, moving into his new quote unquote journeys of SparkToro and Snackbar, and what he's been able to do with those, the lessons he's learned, and why he wants to do things differently this time. We need to be reshaping, rethinking, and reevaluating the things that we do. Take with us the things that are great, leave behind the things that aren't serving us so well, and enabling others to be who they were designed to be. Thank you, Rand, for being on the show. You're a rock star, man. If you want to find out more information about me or check out the show notes where there's going to be more information and links to the things referenced in this episode, visit scottwaldron.com. And lastly, I'm asking for a little bit of love, just a little bit. So please take a moment, follow, rate the show. The algorithms like that. It helps me get the word out. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And until next time, stay unlocked.